How's it going, everybody? And welcome in to the debut edition of Insider Gaming's Party Chat podcast, where we speak with a special guest every episode, an expert from their field. And today, for the first episode, we are joined by the one and only executive editor of Windows Central, Jez Corden. Jez, how are you? Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It's an honor to be the first numero uno. So thank you so much for having me. I'll be honest, I'm not doing particularly great. I've had a headache for months, and I know I'm having doctor's appointments about it, but we're still alive, so that's the main thing. But it's been a long day for reasons I'm sure we're going to go into in a moment. But yeah, how are you, lovely people? You rocking and rolling?
We're not probably not as tired as you, but we're there. This has been a long time coming, getting this show ready, and now you have the bar to set because everybody will be compared to you.
Oh dear.
No pressure. Tom, how
My
are
vodka's downstairs.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, we want all of the juicy leaks, all of the scoops, all of the hot takes. We want it all. We need it all.
That's why we brought Jez here to sabotage and hold him hostage, as if he can't just click leave. Like it's not as easy as if you were doing it in person to coerce. But this is Insider Gaming Party Chat, coming to you through the Insider Gaming app, exclusively first for Premium Plus subscribers. Sign up today. Only $6.99 a month gets you exclusive podcasts, personalized feeds, and so much more. But we all know, as we're recording this, the big news we're here to talk about. Steam decided to just throw everything at the wall in one fell swoop. New Steam machine, almost a decade to the day from the launch of the original. Steam controller announcement, same, almost to the day of the launch of the original. And the new Steam Frame VR headset, a follow-up to 2019's Valve Index. Very high level to start. But what did you like the most about what they announced? And we'll get into each product and specifically the Steam machine in a minute to the nitty gritty. But what stood out to you about the announcement or how they announced it?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I started getting information about this just a couple of days ago. It seems like there was some kind of big media event. We weren't invited because we're not part of the cool kids.
We give out the stuff before the news drops.
Yeah, but I started getting info from sources like this is happening. I was like, I started teasing on my Twitter, and I was like, man, should I leak this? It's always that kind of like, should I? Because it's going to get clicks, but it's also like ruin the announcement for everyone, and it is better when it's sort of it comes from the actual source. So it was sort of one of them. But like I didn't have like granular information on exactly what it would look like and what it would be until like earlier today. So then it's like, you're running through all the specs, because like they give you some of the specs, but there's no benchmarks and stuff. And I think Digital Foundry actually got to go hands-on with it and stuff. So they've like given a closer overview. But like this morning, I was up at like 6 a.m. today when I got all the info in, and I was like, okay, and I'm not the most technical person in the universe. So I'm like sitting there trying to like look at all these specs and stuff with a banging headache, trying to figure out like how, like I said, this is Zen 4. What does that actually mean? So trying to like figure out how this like how you can put it into, how you can frame it for the audience so they understand like how powerful is this. And I was second guessing myself. I was like, yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to be as powerful as a PS5. And I was like, if I put that out there in the article and it is more powerful than the PS5, I'm going to look like an idiot. But thankfully, Digital Foundry agreed with my analysis. I felt like that was a big relief. And that's probably not going to be as powerful as a PS5. But they said it sits somewhere between the Xbox Series S and the PS5. So honestly, I was just happy that my article made sense because I didn't have a clue. It was kind of like flying blind there a little bit.
I had to get the articles up so quick that I'm reading the specs And I'm like, I want to explain all this because I'm a big tech person. Like, that's just what I love. I love looking. I dissect things. Like when I got the ROG Ally, I took that thing apart the day I
Oh
got
my
it
god, you're
because of the
brave.
fact I wanted to see it. And if I had to mess with things, I solder I mess with everything. Like I build Frankenstein systems in my free time. And when I saw the hardware, yeah, immediately I thought like there will be people that say this reaches PS5 power. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But looking at what they have, it's not really going to be. It might be close, but only in unique circumstances. For me, that control, like I like that they announced everything at once. I hate that they're just like early 2026 with no pricing or anything. Maybe, and to me, there's no way they're still deciding on that. But that Steam controller is absolutely atrocious looking. Like I have the original one. I actually liked the original one. I liked the touchpads design and I liked the placement of them. This controller feels like you're going to be hitting those trackpads too many times when you are trying to just use your joysticks.
Well, I kind of feel like it's got to have some kind of capacitive detection kind of system, which, figures out if it's been hit by a palm or hit by a finger. It's got to have some of those kind of stuff baked into it. I would imagine so. I mean, I remember when like you first saw like the ROG Ally, right? I remember when
Yeah.
I first saw this, and like I leaked Canon myself exclusively, just a humble brag there, a few months ago, and like I didn't have a huge amount of information on it, but one of the bits of information I put in the article was it had Xbox like grips. And I was like, I can't imagine that on a handheld. And when the pictures came out from the FCC, if you remember those really dusty pictures,
Yep.
it looked hideous. And I still think it does look a bit weird. But when you hold it, it's like, oh, actually, this is probably the best handheld I've ever used because it's just so ergonomic. So
Yeah,
like
from
I'm
ergonomics, there's
yeah,
nothing better.
it's so nice to hold. So like when I look at the Steam controller, um, I was like, my instinct was to be like, this looks ugly as hell, and the thumbsticks are in a weird position, and it's like, how is this going to feel with those trackpads and stuff? But like, then I was remembering how I felt about the Ally just by looking at it. I think sometimes you have to really get it in the hand before you can judge it, and hopefully the things like palm muting and stuff like that, hopefully like they'll have nailed a lot of that stuff. The controller does have impressive specs. It's got a 6-axis gyroscope. It's got capacitive wake. When you pick it up, it turns on, and a bunch of other like techie kind of stuff, which kind of makes the current gen controllers look as old as they are now. Like
Right.
I've
I mean,
started hearing things about.
its wireless adapter charges the controller. So that's a nice little thing. You don't have to worry
Yeah, yeah,
about
yeah.
like plugging something else in to charge it. You can just pop it right on the plug, the what they call the puck.
Yeah,
And if you don't
the
want to use any
Steam
of that,
controller port.
it's Bluetooth. It's got the wired if you want. Like it's going to probably be a solid controller features wise. I need to hold my hand on it, and it has to be, a price worthy of
Yeah.
it. They also announced their Steam Frame VR, which was the worst kept secret. The old Project Deckard. Specs and details have been coming out of that since early this year and picked up more over the summer.
Is it
That
wireless?
it is. It can be both. They call it a streaming first device, but it is designed to, they say, a PC. You'll be able to install your own apps, browse the web, play games away. It has storage. I believe it is up to a terabyte of internal storage, and then it also has a micro SD slot for expanded storage. So they're learning the lesson of the Valve Index, which was you had to be connected and tied to your computer, because that's what makes the MetaQuest so enticing. Is you can Steam link it, you can have your computer in one room, be in a completely different room, connect wirelessly to your Steam to get your library there, or just install games right on the Quest itself. And that's why that had always been the dominant VR headset. Also, its price point is pretty damn affordable. This one won't be. All signs point to it. And my best guess is that we're looking at like a $1,200 headset. So you're priced more like the Apple Vision Pro than you are the Meta Quest. So I don't know. Tom,
does it have inside out
yeah,
tracking?
yes. They have what they call custom pancake lenses. But it does have inside out camera based tracking. IPD I think is up to 70 millimeters, and they're like, it's got the features. I just don't know if it's $1,200 features, even with the new controllers that have haptic motion in each controller. Finger tracking. They got the capacitive finger tracking and sensing for all inputs. Full on controls, bumpers, analog triggers, backside D-pad, ABXY controller buttons. Like, it's got the features, but I still don't know if people are wanting to pay who you're trying to target that much.
Yeah. It's a deep enthusiast space, isn't it? I think like Meta rebranded its whole company around VR, which I think is hilarious considering how much of a flash in the pan the metaverse was. But they their MetaQuest headsets, like, they tried to tap this sort of casual audience that doesn't exist for the MetaQuest stuff. Like, people buy these headsets and they just don't use them. So I think, like, if you are gonna do a VR headset, you might as well go balls to the wall and target like more of an enthusiast crowd and do it that way. I think, because I don't think there is a casual market for these devices. They have to be like enthusiast devices.
Yeah,
in my
where you're
mind.
looking at casual is the Meta at the end of the day. The $300 headset.
Yeah, but there's no money in casual because there's no spend. There's just no spend. So I think
I can
you
tell
kind of
you
have
that
to like
from
look towards that.
I can tell you that from personal experience. I have a Quest 3. I think I've bought one game on it, and that's Beat Saber. And
Same here. I got a Meta
Yeah,
Quest.
same.
Microsoft. I bought my own Meta Quest because my girlfriend was intrigued and wanted one, and we bought like 2 games, and then it's just sat there gathering dust. And then Microsoft sent me the Xbox Meta Quest over the summer. This is an Xbox for your face. Again, it was like, this is cool, I guess, because it was like I had the Meta Quest 2, I think, which was not the best experience, and I used the Meta Quest 3, and I was like, oh wow, this is so much better than the Meta Quest 2. But again, sits there gathering dust because at the end of the day, I don't want to wear a computer on my face. I think like most casual people don't really want to do that. You want to game for comfort. So I think like if you're gonna make a VR device, make a great VR device for people who really love that shit, because I think that's the only market that's ever going to exist in a universe where you have to put the thing on your head. So I don't know, but and yeah, I'm still interested in the tech, but it's because it's like sci-fi, isn't it? But it's just not practical, I think, for a lot of the time.
Yeah, the issue with VR is that it's still such a fad. I mean, even in the UK, because I've got a younger son, right? We always go to like arcades and that, and there's still you can still pay £2 or £3 to play on a VR headset at the arcade, which is just crazy. But yeah, it's interesting that what Valve has done here is, I think they're, apart from the control, obviously, is they are trying to enter 2 completely different markets, and I think probably on a hugely different price point, because I think I agree with Mike. This is probably going to be $1,200 ish, maybe, definitely 1,000 plus, I would imagine, right? But I think the biggest question at the moment, and I guess it even ties into the overall console market, is the Steam machine and what exactly that's going to cost, because people are so well divided, and I think Valve's messaging probably hasn't helped, because they've said to the various outlets that went to that event that this is going to be priced like an entry level computer. It's not going to be priced like a console. So what exactly does that mean? Are we looking at an $800 to $900, $1,000 console with this?
I've
If
heard
so,
it's more expensive than the current price of the Series X. So like I've seen
So
I've seen people
So you're looking at $700.
something like that. Yeah, I've seen people running around on Twitter saying like, "Oh, it's going to be $300 like the Steam Deck." And it's like, no, sorry,
No,
but
like looking at the specs of the Steam Deck or Steam machine. Sorry, the Zen 4 is a last gen CPU. They're already on Zen 5. The RDNA 3 is a good. I mean, that's pretty modern. You're seeing that in the 6700 AMD graphics cards. RAM, it's got 16 gigs of DDR5 and then 8 gigs DDR6 for the GPU and then regular. The internal power supply is such a boon even with this box being the size of a tissue box. It'll have two models, the 512 and the 2 terabyte. I expect that 2 terabyte to come in around $1,000. And then the 512, if it's going to be priced like a small PC, an entry level PC, as someone who builds them, you are looking, if you want even remotely modern hardware, you're looking at a minimum of $600. Like, and that's if you get a couple things like secondhand and you get the cheapest case you can possibly get and all that. So yeah,
I think
go on.
Sorry. I was going to say, one of the other things I think this has going for it is you can buy it without a controller, because Xbox and PlayStation controllers will work on this thing. So if you've got an existing controller, like with your PC, you potentially save some money, because it does seem like the Steam controllers are going to probably be pretty expensive as well.
I'd say
They're going to be,
150.
yeah, something like that. They've got 35-hour battery life. They've got all this tech baked into them, like the gyroscope and the capacitive whatever and all this other stuff. They're probably going to be like, maybe not elite controller prices, but they're not going to be like your $40 standard Xbox Series S kind of controller with the AA batteries, right? So that'll shave some off the price, but it's not going to be cheap. I think people who are expecting this to be like, oh, this is going to be much more affordable than the PS5. I think they're going to be
comparable.
Very, very disappointing.
I will say overall, I think this is cheaper than what the next gen consoles will be.
Oh yeah, probably.
Like that.
Probably.
So that'll be the comparison, is getting it into your living room. Like the idea. So currently I have a laptop hooked up to my TV in my living room that I play Steam games on when I want to sit on the couch. And that's what my kids play. This is going to be the price, as long as it's no more than a PS5 Pro. I will end up being something I purchased solely because the amount of games on Steam, more games on Steam, cheaper games on Steam thanks to Steam sales. Like, it is going to be the family game system. And we already have controllers because it supports the Bluetooth. Also, the name is completely wrong, and Valve should have went straight up full, like Gabe Newell should have went straight up egotistical and said, we're calling it the Steam GabeCube.
GabeCube.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. That's a good one, Tom.
Wow.
So you put up the poll on your Twitter account, Tom, asking what people think about the price. And Jez already kind of touched on it. So many people think that it's going to be $300 to $400.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's interesting. Like, I put this out maybe 2 hours ago. It's got like 5,000 votes at the moment. 33.5% say it's going to be between $400 and $599, which was the lowest that I put on there. 37% say between $600 and $800. 19% between 18 and 800 and 1,000, and 10% 1,000 plus. But yeah, I definitely think we're in that higher price point. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, to see the 2 terabyte version at $999. I really wouldn't, and maybe $799 for the lower one. Is it 512?
Yeah.
But the other thing that I'm seeing on Twitter as well, and I guess this is definitely one for you, Jez, is that I'm already seeing it everywhere that Valve has already beat Xbox to the punch, right? Like, it's just, I kind of saw it coming. The writing was on the wall. But do you think that Xbox should be worried about this?
I mean, I think it's definitely, it vindicates Xbox's strategy, I think, to some degree, because Xbox is going in this direction as well, where they're doubling down on Windows and all that kind of stuff. So I think like the competition is really important in a universe where everyone is so sick of what they've been doing with Windows, all the bloat, all the AI stuff, and there's been it's Windows has been without a serious competitor for decades. There are like a minuscule of people who swear by Mac OS, but let's be real, nobody uses a Mac. Um, and it's sort of like Windows has been completely without any sort of competition. So I do think, like from that perspective, it's probably a good thing that Microsoft's gonna have someone that's so pro consumer and laser focused on delivering for their customers rather than shareholders, to actually do some of that stuff. But clearly, like Microsoft was aware of where all of this was going because Microsoft started doing this initiative seriously about 14 months ago, I was told. And then, they got the green light from Amy and Satya to start funding the next gen Xbox console a few months ago, um, all up the chain, all costed, deals drawn with AMD and all that kind of stuff to really double down on, making Windows more friendly for gaming. Um, that being said, SteamOS has huge shortcomings because of Linux, right? So even though
And
like
yet
I've
it's
seen like
still getting better. Like thanks to SteamOS, like Linux has gotten better. Without SteamOS becoming a thing, Linux would be dead for gaming still. That alone with the
sure,
Proton and stuff, like it's getting better. It's still just not at the place it needs to be adopted by everybody.
yeah, sure, but like the one of the limitations there is just the simple fact it's open source, which it complicates things like kernel level anti-cheat, which is a
Yes.
notorious thing. There are some games which just don't emulate well on Proton, although that's improving all the time, sure, but and there's also like Steam dominates the discourse in this social media bubble. Everyone thinks like Steam's a dominant one, blah 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 blah. But Steam is just a fraction of what PC gaming actually looks like. You've got things like the BattleNet, which has tens of millions of monthly active users. Nobody talks about it, but BattleNet by itself's got tens of millions of monthly active users. And then you've got stuff like the Riot client, which also has tens of millions of monthly active users, and the HoYoverse launcher, which has tens of millions of monthly active users. So there's so many platforms which you can run on Steam. Like there is a Linux client for BattleNet, for example, but these are like hoops you have to jump through to get it working, which is kind of antithetical to the use case of a console, which is like I want to plug it in, have my controller, and just have it work. And yeah, I can tinker with Linux and get BattleNet running on it or Genshin Impact and stuff like that. I've done it myself on my Steam Deck, but it's a pain in the arse, if all you want to do is turn it on and play a game. So, um, while they have beat Microsoft to the punch in some ways, the maturity of Windows as a backwards compatibility sort of platform, you know, and without any of the headaches of not being native, Windows has considerable advantages in a sense that they can come in later and potentially offer more.
I mean,
The issue
we
with
got a good start with Windows and how they're kind of, I don't want to say changing, but maybe tweaking their approach to the gaming UI and the experience with the ROG Ally.
yeah,
There's no doubt that
I,
is the base level foundation of what they seem to be intending to do from a
mhm.
gaming standpoint.
Yeah, I mean the operating system on the ROG Ally is the operating system on the next Xbox. This is it's literally that is it. So if you want to test out the next Xbox, get a ROG Ally. Because that is literally where they're going with it. Um, but that's the thing. The gap, the downside for Valve and the SteamOS is like almost like it's a very highly technical kind of thing, which can be fixed in the background. Whereas, like with Xbox, they've got the opposite problem. They've got the technical stuff in the background sorted out. It's the user experience that's terrible.
Mhm.
So that's the thing everyone sees and everyone talks about. Nobody cares how the sausage is made or the underlying technology as long as it works. Um, but Valve has Steam Big Picture Mode is just so much more usable and so much more user friendly than what's available even now on the Xbox Ally. But like I said, they threw this together in like just over a year. They threw this together,
Yeah.
all this stuff, and getting the Windows team and the Xbox team to work together in a company that is historically siloed. A lot of things have had to change at Microsoft at a corporate level, political level, to make this happen. And like, I don't think if there wasn't a very strong will from the very top of Microsoft to stay in gaming, none of this would have happened. Because this required tons of restructuring in order to make happen. So, so while it is like a kind of, it's like, oh, Valve beat them to the punch. Like, Microsoft has a lot of the groundwork done, potentially the more complicated stuff done, and the user experience stuff is potentially easier to put together, hopefully. But this is one of the other issues: is Microsoft often has these great ideas and lofty goals, and then doesn't execute on it. You know, we've seen it only recently with HoloLens and their metaverse fad that fell apart. We're seeing Microsoft now like bend over backwards to try and make their own AI work in a universe where ChatGPT is utterly dominant. And that's like that's one of the pitfalls I think here, is that Microsoft's focus as a company is heavily divided at a time where to really make this work, they need a lot more focus, I think, on both ends. So it could end up being a situation where they're biting off more than they can chew.
Yeah.
But if they can pull it off, it'll be great for not just people in the Xbox ecosystem, but PC gamers too, because Windows is still the best platform for gaming.
But what you're not, you failed to mention is the big thing about the GabeCube being announced is that Microsoft doesn't have to worry. This is an Xbox.
Well,
you can install, they are adamant, this is a PC and you can install your own apps and operating system. There's nothing stopping people who have Game Pass from installing it and getting their games and their subscription and using it on that device. So in a way, it just adds to, and Phil Spencer's come out and said, like, they've been a great partner. We're excited about this, and they congratulate him because he knows this is just another platform for their games to be on.
Well, this is the other side of the equation, is that Microsoft's, the core business of gaming is selling games. And even though like the discourse on social media often revolves around these very narrow narratives which aren't really truly in line with the reality of the gaming industry. Like, everyone talks about, you know, Sony selling, you know, tens of millions of units of PlayStation every year, but their playtime hours have only increased by 1%, you know, which suggests they're selling PS5s to users they've already got on PS4. You know, if Sony was gaining users, you would expect the PS5 to outpace sales of the PS4, wouldn't you? Mathematically speaking. So like the Satya was talking about TikTok eating into the game industry's lunch, but you only need to look at PlayStation's trajectory to know that it's absolutely true. And Sean Layden himself said it, you know, PlayStation alumni Sean Layden. So there's a sort of, you know, generational constraints on the industry in general that I think all companies are kind of dealing with. But each company's sort of breaking down these barriers and breaking down these walls and being like, in order for this to grow, there needs to be more collaboration between the companies. Collaboration, but also competition too. Like, every company needs to do something a little bit different, a little bit lean into their strengths a little bit more. And while without undermining each other, you know. So like Xbox is leaning quite heavily into cloud gaming right now, while also collaborating heavily with NVIDIA GeForce Now. Like, NVIDIA GeForce Now fully supports PC Game Pass and Boosteroid as well. Boosteroid, like, nobody really talks about Boosteroid, but Boosteroid also has PC Game Pass baked into it. You know, Xbox has put all of its games on PlayStation, and Sony was out here talking to investors about how much of a success Helldivers 2 has been on Xbox, you know, just this week. And you're probably going to see more of that. Like, more PlayStation games are going to come to Xbox as well down the line. And Valve and Microsoft are collaborating on this too. Microsoft's collaborating on Linux as well. Obviously, Microsoft puts its games on Steam, and a lot of people like to paint Valve and Microsoft as like these arch enemies or something. But Valve and Microsoft HQs are like next door to each other. All the people there are like mates and stuff, and they hang out, and there is this, you know, collaborative sense between these companies. So, you know, obviously they disagree on some things, but I think ultimately there is a spirit of friendly competition in face of the fact that there is outside forces that are competing with gaming all up rather than each other more and more and more. So a lot of the discussions at a high level between PlayStation, Xbox, and Valve, and all these other companies are like, what do we do about short form video? You know, it's less about let's try and kill each other. Let's, you know, look to ways that we can, you know, make gaming sort of align more with what Gen Alpha and Gen Beta coming up might want, you know. Which
think,
is it's
yeah,
it's all a part of the equation. There's a lot of
I
facets to this.
yeah, I think that's important as well. Is like what you mentioned that at the end of the day, this isn't a surprise for Xbox, right? Like they've probably known about this for since it started development. I guess one of the key things for me is do you see? I think in my opinion anyway. Like you might have a completely different opinion, but I personally see that Microsoft wants to get Xbox out of the hardware business. I believe that this could potentially be the last generation of hardware if things don't go the way that they want it to be. And let's say that the Steam machine is, I don't know, 799. It does 15 million units within 2 years or 3 years or whatever it may be, and it's you know on par with the current generation of Xbox. Do you, do you feel like they could potentially look at that and because at the end of the day, yes, it is an Xbox, right? Where they could just back out of the hardware business altogether?
No, that's not going to happen. Like Xbox has a huge hardware design lab at Redmond, and you know, they employ hundreds of people in that space to innovate in hardware specifically. I think what'll happen with Xbox is they'll scale back to become like an OEM within a wider Xbox ecosystem of a plurality of devices. You know, like if you look at other PC OEMs in the business, they're not looking to sell 100 million units of anything. You
Hmm.
know, ASUS doesn't make a laptop and think, oh, we want to sell 100 million of these. Like the ASUS ROG Ally, you know, it's tens of thousands of units. It's not millions of units.
Hmm.
Like the PC OEM business is fundamentally not the same as the previous generations of console hardware in a universe where each generation cut off the last generation. You know, Sony's out here talking about how the PS5 is only halfway through its lifespan, right? Because we now live in this world where the device matters less and less and less and less. What matters is your ecosystem overall. So it's no coincidence that Microsoft's hardware chief is Rowan Soames now, who used to run Windows OEM business because she wants to build an Xbox OEM business.
Mhm.
And just like the Windows OEM business, Microsoft makes reference devices Surface at lower volumes. So I do think there'll be more Xbox hardware after this gen, and I think there'll be more Xbox hardware even after that gen. They'll just be a PC OEM, just like any other PC OEM, and they'll
Hmm.
manufacture basically to order. They'll manufacture, you know, hundreds of thousands of units, not tens of millions of units, because the business has fundamentally changed for them. There's
Speaking of the
also
hardware, go on. Sorry.
sorry, there's just one last point on this. Um, Microsoft is also heavily constrained in pushing into new markets, and not a lot of people talk about this. But because of Microsoft's military contracts, they are often precluded from um, markets which are hostile to the United States, or at least in a sort of, you know, it's a United States skepticism, namely China, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Xbox has struggled to penetrate China because of this regulatory environment, whereas Steam has not struggled to penetrate China because Steam does not have military contracts, not yet anyway. Maybe they will someday, but so like the Steam machine potentially becomes a vehicle for Xbox's games in China eventually. And obviously Xbox has a big presence in China thanks to ABK, because of their partnership between NetEase and Blizzard. World of Warcraft is absolutely massive in China. Diablo is going to be massive in China. Overwatch is massive in China. There's a Diablo version came out recently, which is, specifically designed for China. And there's a new version of World of Warcraft as well, which is specifically designed for China. And this is a universe where Xbox simply just will never exist. So, no, I actually think, like, in a universe where Xbox scales back, I think it actually becomes easier for them to make hardware because they take the pressure off themselves and they spread the pressure out over their OEM partners, where they're just like, you can make an Xbox and you can make an Xbox and you can make an Xbox. And they'll also still have their huge cloud array. So I think it takes the pressure off. It lets them maybe do weirder stuff, innovate more, and let their partners make weird Xboxes. Like, the $2,000 Xbox from ASUS is probably going to be a thing in the future. And Xbox will continue, like Surface, to make hardware for its fan base, while selling games everywhere and everywhere.
I do wonder on the hardware, and I've talked about this on Insider Gaming Weekly before. Like, one of the pieces of hardware I fully expect to come from Microsoft at some point is a box about this size, and all it is used is to stream your Game Pass games, like cloud gaming. It's literally the truest of entry level machine devices that connects a controller to your TV and the internet and gets you the cloud gaming, because we know Microsoft is continuing to invest in cloud streaming, and they just have like an entry level, I don't know, $100, $200, maybe $150 little box just to make sure you can connect to the internet well and your controller works.
That's what Keystone was. Microsoft did have a prototype for something like that called Keystone. They shelved it because they couldn't get it down to $99. They wanted it to be $99. But, like, in a universe where you can put an app on a TV, it's probably not really needed. I think, like, the next generation of TVs are probably going to come with better cloud gaming features, like the Samsung Gaming Hub retroactively ported into, Samsung TVs. But, TVs don't necessarily have the best Wi-Fi. A lot of them have Ethernet ports, like mine has an Ethernet port. A lot of them don't have the best Wi-Fi or
Bluetooth.
And yeah. But
that's why I'm
future
thinking
TVs
maybe
will.
like a box. They got to be able, or at least better, higher powered USB ports that they have them. They're just base USB 2, like higher powered USB 3 or C that a dongle at least could be connected.
Yeah.
That gives you that better connection for a controller.
I think it'll come eventually, probably, but, like, I think this is also like an operating system issue for Microsoft, probably to some degree. They don't have a light operating system based on Windows. So, like, they'd have to either fork Android open source project, or they'd have to, like, go full Android with, the Google Play license and stuff. And I don't think Microsoft wants to do that anymore. They laid off their Android teams years ago with the death of the Surface Duo. But this is another OEM thing that could happen, like the Logitech G Cloud, for example, which is a cloud gaming device which nobody really talks about, which is actually pretty fantastic. It's an Android tablet which has an Xbox controller pre-attached to it, and it's not cheap. I think it's like $200, but it's a fantastic little device. It's really ergonomic. It's light as hell. The battery life's crazy, and it does all the cloud gaming stuff. And there's probably a universe where you could take something like that and dock it straight to the TV. Maybe you can even dock that to the TV. I don't even know. I don't have one to hand at the moment. But things like Samsung Decks work pretty well with cloud gaming. But that's the thing with this strategy is, like, people clown on this is an Xbox strategy, but literally anything can be an Xbox now. It's true. Unironically, I can take my phone and plug it into the TV and have a full screen Xbox experience, assuming my TV doesn't already have it. I've got so many devices around me which I could use to play Xbox on. Like, I got this bloody backbone thing for my phone, and I've got the ROG Ally here. My TV's got Xbox built in. Like, I could take this second monitor I've got Discord on and plug my phone into that and then play Xbox on that. It's just the whole concept of like Xbox needs to sell tens of millions of units to stay in the business just doesn't make any sense anymore.
No, I mean,
doesn't make sense.
I disagreed with that from the beginning anyway, because they're losing. I think the theory is they are losing money on console sales, right? Is I don't know if that's accurate or not, but they are probably
I think they
break even.
I think they still do lose money on
Yeah.
the sale, even with the price hikes because of
Mm.
tariffs and all stuff like that. But you know,
Yeah.
that's part of the reason to scale back and also spread the risk and spread the business to OEMs, because you know ASUS has like hundreds of SKUs and they don't expect to sell millions of units of anything. Like the hardware business is notoriously like a sort of 13, 12, 11 to 13% kind of margin business. So like why not pass that on to their Windows partners, which they've had for years, and they want to support them as well, you know. I
Mm.
think it's a great strategy, but we'll see how it plays out. You know, we'll see if anyone cares about it, and you know, and we'll see if Satya gets bored of it and decides, you know what, we could get rid of this and fund another data center or two. You know,
Yeah. I mean, I would absolutely, to be honest, I would absolutely love to see like an Amazon Fire Stick type Xbox device that would do exactly what Mike said with the cloud gaming stuff. I know that you know every device is an Xbox at the end of the day, but I still think there is definitely something to be said about having something physically branded, I guess.
well, yeah, that is important. Like the whole people want a sense of ownership. So like, while you can run Xbox on an Amazon Fire Stick, it's not an Xbox Amazon Fire Stick, right? But there are devices coming which are going to help with this. Like the next generation Xbox controllers, for example, they all come with direct to Wi-Fi built in, like the Stadia controllers did. So like we were talking about earlier how TVs have terrible Bluetooth now, but like the next generation of Xbox controller, they won't need to connect to Bluetooth. They will connect straight to your Wi-Fi, eliminate that bit of latency, and they'll send your inputs straight to Microsoft servers, synchronized with the game stream. And it should provide a more like, because Stadia was like ahead of the curve with its cloud streaming, just had a
Yeah.
terrible ecosystem attached to it. So
And I mean, Luna's still there too, somehow hanging around.
man, I don't know how long Luna is for this world after all them Amazon layoffs recently, but yeah, it's a weird universe, man. There's so much going on. The world's changing so rapidly, and there is this AI bullshit lurking in the background, like, and Microsoft is probably tying itself in knots trying to figure out how can we tie our gaming stuff to AI to keep the shareholders hyped and happy, you know.
I mean,
Which
what
is
they did. When did that launch? Did it launch this year or last year? Their game guides, like their walkthroughs, and with Cortana for gaming, like that. That was
gaming Copilot.
yeah. That
I
I don't know if that's taken off. I have never used it solely for the case of what we do for a living, the principle of what we do for a living, and what so many of our colleagues and friends do. It cannibalizes their work. I refuse to use it. I'd rather look and read a friend's work than use what arguably was probably trained on.
Well, Microsoft, on that point, you know, this is not necessarily gaming related, but like on that point, Microsoft is working on in beta right now a sort of a portal for publishers to get paid directly for giving AI information. Now, I don't know if it's going to be good money, but Microsoft is pretty cognizant of the fact that AI needs human input to function, at least today. Like eventually, probably robots will be able to do it. But like at least today, it needs human input and human inference, because there is such a thing as like model death. Like if all the guide writers went away tomorrow, AI would AI is biased towards providing an answer even if it's wrong. So AI would start generating answers based on AI content, and then do it again and do it again and do it again. And you get this situation. It's almost like inbreeding. You get this situation where the information becomes iteratively worse because it's just recycling itself over and over again. So I think like there is this sort of awareness that something needs to change there. But I did use Gaming Copilot the other day playing Dragon Quest on the Ally. If you long press the library button, Gaming Copilot turns on. It starts looking at your screen. And I was like, Copilot, what is this monster weak against? And it saw what the monster was, searched the internet, and it was like, oh yeah, you want to use fire on this monster. And it worked. And I was like, oh, that's pretty neat, actually. But at the same time, you're cognitively aware of the fact that some guide writer wrote what the monster was weak against, and I've deprived them of a click by doing that, you know. So it's there's so much stuff going on and changing rapidly, and you know, obviously AI has a role to play here somehow, whether it's like benign things like auto super resolution or frame generation, or it's, you know, wholesale theft of our content. It's
Yeah.
it's inevitable. There's nothing we can do about it. But it remains to be seen how it all plays out, man.
Overall with Xbox, I mean, you're here, you're known for your Windows and Xbox coverage, so we're going to ask about it. There has been such a trend of information getting out. Is this, we kind of talked about it off the air a little bit. Is this a case of accidentally on purpose types of leaks where Microsoft, if good leaks get out, it can build up hype? Is that kind of what's happening in a way, do you think? Or is this a case of companies just so big, things are going to find their way through the cracks?
I'm sure there are companies out there that do these leaks on purpose, like Google Pixel was pretty notorious for Pixel phones mysteriously being left in bars for a while. But the cease and desist and angry emails I've received over the years probably tells me no. I was pulled aside at Gamescom just this year and accosted by a PR person, you know, like quite angrily. I was put on the spot quite a bit. So you know, I've never got a sense that these things happen on purpose. I think it's just with every company's different, right? But even like within Microsoft, every division is different. So it depends on the way the information is being shared. I think Microsoft has improved its security. Tom will know this, but like for the longest time, it was the Halo API was so leaky. It was like had really poor security and it was really easy to data mine. So like people just data mine the Halo API and you know, all sorts of things leak from that, like the Battle Royale that never came out and the switch to Unreal Engine, like all that kind of stuff leaked through the Halo API. But Windows Update was the same way. Like the Windows Update platform was leaky. So like sometimes like things would run through Windows Update and it'd be like a container for a game and all kinds of stuff. Like the way it was set up. I don't fully understand it myself, but there were like Discord communities like set up towards data mining Microsoft stuff, you know. They used to use WordPress, for example, for their blogs. I think they might still do, but WordPress had like a really huge flaw in its drafting and staging area for a long time. So when Microsoft was like drafting a blog post, like to announce something, data miners could find that shit because a lot of the URLs were publicly facing, just not linked anywhere. So you could like do port sniffing and stuff like that to get the information and and reverse engineer the PHP files or something. I don't know, but it's just there were huge data mining communities set up to do this, but Microsoft has improved security a lot over the years,
right?
but it is just a case. It's just a fact that it's a big company. Yeah, it's a big company with loads of divisions, a lot of bureaucracy and moving parts where things have to pass through multiple departments to get to where it needs to go, and then back and forth. And then they work with a lot of partners. A lot of things leaks via retailers. You know, we used to get mountains of Surface leaks via retailers, or even manufacturers. You know, like in China. My colleague Zach Bowden on Windows Central has a collection of Microsoft prototype hardware all out of China and the factories there. It's people, sell it and then collect it. And Zach's crazy, man. He's got like the original Surface table. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Like the very first Surface was a coffee table, and it was
Yeah.
designed to go in hotels and stuff like that. And Zach has one in his living room, and then he's hacked Windows 11 onto it. It's hilarious. But
I would love that.
yeah.
That just says to me the greatest D&D nights of all time. That's all that says to me. That was always a dream of mine. And then my group that played with, we all decided to do the thing like have kids.
I was just going to say
And it
quickly
died.
on the Xbox leaks, because like Max said, we was discussing
man.
it before we came on the air, but I definitely agree that a lot of Microsoft leaks in particular happen because it's a big company. It's the reason why, like, Phil Spencer's memos and all that leak out, because it's been sent to tens of thousands of people, right, as opposed to 1,000 or whatever. But the reason for the question, and I even did an article on this myself about like how leaks happen and verification between sources and all that kind of stuff, is that I've always felt like there was definitely one bad egg over at Microsoft. And you probably get this yourself, Jez. I know that Mike gets it, and I definitely get it. But what will happen is if something's going to leak out from, it's always Microsoft in particular, but when something's going to leak out, you'll get a DM, and then probably within the next 10 minutes, you'll get another DM from, one of these YouTubers, content creators, whatever. Typically not journalists, because I think they kind of know better in a way to verify. And then it just spreads around like wildfire, and it's always kind of like this weird verification between second, third, fourth hand sources where it just spreads around, and then you kind of get this weird thing of like people reporting on it on podcasts, and then it's picked up on by journalists and stuff like that, and then information just spreads like crazy, and most of the time it is accurate, but it's not accurate to the extent that would warrant like a report, right? Because there's so many things missing within it. I don't know. I've just always found it fascinating that for some reason it's Xbox in particular where these leaks originate.
Well, you got to remember as well, Xbox, Microsoft all up, they had like how many layoffs last year? 15,000 or something more than that.
Yeah.
So like a lot of that's a lot of scorned employees at the end of the day. And obviously all the thousands of layoffs weren't specific to Xbox, but like people within Microsoft will be privy to stuff that's going on in the departments in some cases. So, there's there'll be information flying around with, regards to that, and I find that like in the past, some people have come to me with leaks because they're working on a cool thing and they feel like it'd be a good thing if it got out there because the audience would get excited for it, and then it would kind of like incentivize Microsoft to keep funding it, to get some, like they've taken it upon themselves and think that like if we can get this public and get some feedback on it, we can use that data, but it's like not like as a controlled thing from higher up, but like as an individual employee taking their own initiative. And I kind of think that's how I got access to the cancelled Xbox achievement overhaul, which was like, this is a years old leak, but I leaked that Xbox was working on a huge achievement system overhaul, it was called the career I think it was called something weird like codename Camel or something. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, it had a weird code name, but it was like it was designed around sort of just organizing your achievements better and sort of celebrating them more and stuff like that. A lot of the elements from that effort did end up in the Microsoft rewards for Xbox system, I think, with the quests and stuff. But someone leaked that to me because I think they knew the project was going to be cancelled and they wanted to get it out there to try and make people excited about it and make Microsoft rethink cancelling it. It did get cancelled. It did end up getting cancelled regardless, though. So, and that's not something Microsoft would have wanted out there necessarily. If like they're planning on cancelling something and then one of the team members leaked it to get everyone excited. I leaked that when I was young and naive, and didn't think about like how people might want to use leaks for their own ends, I suppose. But at the end of the day, it's like, some people are just really passionate about the projects they're working on, and they don't think Microsoft's handling the visibility of it very well, or any company. I'll never like, sometimes people just want to be nice. I remember when I found out Bethesda was being acquired, I got a phone call on Instagram, and I didn't even know if Instagram could do phone calls. And I got a phone call. Yeah, I got a phone call on Instagram at 4 a.m. I was like, "What the fuck? A phone call from Instagram?" And yeah, it was a random source. It was like, "Yep, this is happening." I nearly dropped the phone. It was like, "Yeah, Xbox is acquiring Bethesda." I told my buddy Rand about it, my podcast buddy Rand, and I prepped all the article on that because they told me exactly when it was being announced, and I didn't believe it right up until the last minute. And then it all just went live. We weren't briefed on it by Microsoft, and then it was just like, damn, that's the thing. But yeah, leaks happen in all sorts of different ways. Data mining, disgruntled employees, excited current employees.
The employee thing is how I've gotten quite a bit. Like, the layoffs absolutely suck. Like, I hate them. I hate that when I was at Summer Games Fest this year, and even at PAX, people had read my work, and I was being pegged as the layoff reporter. Like, it's so depressing. But those layoffs had led to very nice exclusive stories. So it's a double-edged sword. I don't want people to lose their jobs. But if you do lose your job,
that's terrible, man.
Email me at michael@insider-gaming.com.
That's terrible. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I could talk about leaks and how they happened for ages. I just found it interesting that it was, I don't know, like I've always just thought that it's just, I guess it's the culture of Xbox and like all these podcasters and all that kind of stuff, like just this weird, it's a lot different to a lot of other communities, but the Xbox community is, those hardcore fans that will wait outside the hotel to meet with Phil Spencer and all that kind of stuff is crazy. But I do have one more question, and it does kind of pertain to leaks, and I'm pretty conscious of your time. But one of the leaks or the rumors, I don't think anyone accurate has reported on this, but there was mumblings going around that the next gen Xbox was aiming to release before PlayStation 6. And I saw a report earlier today, I think it was from GameSpot, on an analyst saying that the GTA 6 delay could push the next console generation back because, for one reason or another. But do you think that the 2026 date is at all accurate, or have you heard anything, or is it just too early to say?
The information I've always had about next gen Xbox was 2027, but I think even that was just like ambitious. I think it probably could even be 2028, maybe 2027 announcement or reveal, and then 2028 launch. But I never heard 2026. That was never in any document I ever saw, and I saw quite a lot of documents about what Microsoft were doing. I had that. I had access to Kennen. Kennen was the project name for both the Ally and Ally X, and then the Ally and Ally X had separate code names as well. And then I had a bunch of other code names. I've never seen. Everyone talks about Xbox Magnus. I've never seen that code name anywhere. So like either that's like an AMD code name that Xbox doesn't use, or it's
was that
made up.
I think Magnus was the chip, right?
But but yeah, I never saw 2026.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the rumor is that the reports are that it's the APU, but again, the source of the APU of that detail comes from someone who I personally, from a tech side, as someone who's in the tech side
I think
of things,
I know. Yeah.
I don't trust as far as I can.
Yeah, I just thought the 26th date was interesting just because of the GTA 6 delay announcement, because it would have put Xbox in a pretty good spot then to say that the next gen Xbox is going to be the best place to play GTA 6 or whatever. But yeah.
I don't think
Mm.
Microsoft is just not going to really aggressively market anything, I think, anymore. They've shifted into OEM mode, where it's just like we'll sell lower volume, we'll reduce the amount of risk we take on, and we'll grow the business by selling everywhere else. That's just kind of the way it's going. And I think in that universe where they don't have to worry themselves about selling tens and tens of millions of units, they can be more nimble and more weird, and takes the pressure off a bit. I think it really kind of vindicates the ABK strategy to some degree, because I think they knew that this sort of fracturing of ecosystems was happening. And we've got some strong evidence that Apple are going to release some kind of console as well soon, sort of like ARM powered Apple TV with some strong publisher support. So like you're going to get Apple sort of throwing a wrench in the works as well. And like if you're a Microsoft and you're seeing all this fracturing happen, and you're like, the lowest on the ladder of the top, the three big ones, it's kind of like, how do you ensure your future in that situation? You make sure you're everywhere. And that's exactly what they've done with Call of Duty, Minecraft, even games like, Oblivion, Elder Scrolls, all these sort of mega franchises, which can be everywhere and anything all at once. It doesn't matter in that universe, if no matter how fractured platforms get, if you're putting your stuff everywhere, you're going to get the users, you're going to make the money, and then you still have a way to subsidize your own ecosystem where they make the most money and have the best margins. So it's just the way the PC OEMs operate, essentially.
And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Steam, with Xbox, with Apple. Hell, who knows what PlayStation is going to do. But that's for a conversation another time. This has been a fun party. We've had everybody involved, and we hope you enjoyed the ride. Jez, thank you so much for joining us. Where can the people find your work and hear your opinions?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky, Jez Corden, JZCORDEN. Also on windowscentral.com/gaming if you don't want all the Windowsy kind of stuff. And then Xbox 2 podcast, which is on Randolph Thor 19's YouTube channel. And also if you search XB2 podcast on Google, you'll find it on Spotify, stuff like that. And then also, if you like World of Warcraft, I've got an Unshackled Fury podcast all about World of Warcraft, which we do infrequently because there's not a ton of Warcrafty news, popping off every week like there is Xbox and gaming. But yeah, that's where you can find me. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Like I said, you set the bar, and we're gonna see if other people can keep up. This has been Insider Gaming Party Chat. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, add it to your feed on the Insider Gaming app, and we will see you on the inside.